The Sons of a Fractured Space by Anton Blokin. Copyright 2025 Anton Blokin. Chapter 1. 20 years ago. Year 2283. Earth, Alaska. Harriman Fjord. Morning broke like a hesitant promise over Harriman Fjord. The light, diffused and pale, crept across the snow-etched peaks of the Chugach Mountains and spilled down their pine-drenched slopes in long, trembling fingers. Where once, in the 21st century, a gleaming river of blue ice had dominated the horizon, now only a distant fragment of the glacier remained, withered, recessed, like a dying god retreating into myth. The Somerset Villa, lonely, elegant, and defiant, perched on a high promontory that should never have been chosen for permanence. It overlooked the vast, glacial-scarred waters of the fjord, a place so beautiful it wounded the eye. A place no sane architect should have built anything meant to last. 7-year-old Athena played in the frost-kissed meadow beside the house, her laughter scattering into the brittle air like wind-blown ash. And then the world convulsed. With no warning, only a low, primal groan that rose from beneath the bedrock, the earth rebelled. Trees bent like reeds, the sky swayed in impossible angles. The Somerset Villa, wood, steel, and glass folded into itself as if crushed by the invisible hand of a forgotten titan. Athena's parents were inside. There were no screams, only the sickening thud of finality as roof met floor, and silence poured in like floodwater. Cracks spidered across the ground. They tore open the meadow like surgical incisions, as if the earth itself wished to dissect the grief of a child. Athena, dirt-streaked and paralyzed with terror, sat alone at the edge of a widening abyss. Her sobs were small and swallowed by the groaning wind. Then came the sight, not of salvation, but of inevitability. A white, delta-winged aircraft, sleek, silent, ghost-like, descended through the smoky haze above the broken fjord. Its hull bore no numbers, no nation's crest, only a single perfect symbol, the black omega, ancient and smooth, inscribed like an omen. The aircraft hovered, holding position 20 meters above the splintering ground. It made no sound, not a hum, not a whisper, only a total and terrifying silence that pressed against the ears like deep ocean pressure. Landing was suicide. The terrain heaved like a living thing, but from a square-shaped airlock, flushed with the underside like a Bombay door, a cable unfurled with fluid precision, a reinforced carbon fiber rope threaded with micro-stabilizers, spooling out fast and steady on a magnetic descent winch designed for rapid insertions under unstable conditions. Black armored, visored, unnamed. The wind howled as boots touched earth, just long enough to lift the trembling girl from the edge of the world. No words were exchanged, none were needed. Grief and protocol had long since learned to coexist. The agent rose again, Athena clutched against armored chest, and the craft climbed with unhurried grace into the sky's bruised palette, never to return. Behind them, the mountains bore witness, the fjords swallowed silence, and the earth, as always, remembered everything. Present day. Year 2303, Jupiter system, moon of Callisto, Cryopolis dome, population 12.3 million. Beyond the plasteel dome of Cryopolis, the ice fields of Callisto shimmered under distant sunlight, barren, ancient, and unknowable. Within, life thrived like mold under a pressure seal. Once a remote mining outpost, Cryopolis had risen to dominance after the break from the Earth Coalition, a severing not without its casualties. 1 billion souls now lived across the moons of Jupiter, spread like spores on regolith, ruled now by a nation that had named itself, without irony or permission, Nova Concordia, 20 years ago. Born from rebellion, baptized in vacuum, and stitched together from the burned-out ambitions of a dozen failed colonies, it was less a nation than a declaration, carved into ice and orbital steel. Logan Severance, CEO of Severance Industries, sat alone in his office on the 1500th floor of the Severance Spire, a 6-kilometer tower of black glass and reinforced alloy that stabbed into the pressurized ceiling of the dome like a spear tip daring God to blink. He was in his 50s, though the augments made it hard to tell. His wife had died the same year the colonies gained their so-called independence, from Ashcroft Corporation, from Earth Coalition. He always thought, however, that she's been a warning, a lesson. Logan had learned it and buried it, but he hadn't forgotten. A soft chime. His assistant, a 40th generation android built to resemble something between an executive assistant and a marble statue, spoke in its neutral lilt.
Mr. Severance, Senior Engineer Jules Arden has arrived.
Logan didn't look up from the screen hovering in front of him.
Send him in.
The door hissed open. Jules Arden entered, boots still dusted with the fine reddish grit of Amalthea, gaunt, sunken-eyed, the kind of man who lived too close to radioactive crusts and corporate expectations, a field engineer to his bones.
Have a seat, Jules. Jules, you're one of the best. That's why I'm talking to you, and not to some PR-filtered board rep. But Red Crust Station is months behind. I've got fabrication plants sitting idle on Ganymede. I've got investors who don't understand the word delay.
Jules raised a hand, not rudely, just enough to interrupt the momentum.
Sir, I understand. At first, excavation went smooth. Faster than expected, even. The regolith was light, brittle. But then we hit something.
Logan arched a brow.
You hit something. Let me guess, a metaphorical wall, a funding anomaly, a fault line in the geological model?
No, sir.
He stepped forward and triggered a projection. The office lights dimmed automatically. Holographic tunnels flickered into view, narrow, symmetrical, almost serpentine. Lights panned across the tunnel walls, revealing markings etched into stone. Clean, deliberate, strange.
These tunnels weren't made by our team. In fact, they weren't made by any team I've read about. No drill marks, no blast pattern, just precision.
Logan leaned forward, narrowing his eyes.
Another core. Something old from the first mining initiative. Ashcroft Corporation, maybe.
No, we ran database cross-checks. These patterns, these symbols, don't match anything of human civilization.
He zoomed in. The camera shifted, casting light across alien carvings, elegant, recursive, and maddening.
I've asked around. We've got a dozen structural engineers who can build launch platforms blindfolded, chemists who can brew breathable atmosphere out of frozen piss, architects who've designed ringed stations in the orbit of Europa, but no one with enough knowledge of philology or linguistic forensics. No one who can read those.
There was silence. Logan broke it.
You're telling me my mining operation is now an archaeological dig site?
No, sir. I'm saying it might be something far more important than that, and I think you need to see it for yourself.
Another beat. Logan stood, turning toward the dome wall, the curve of space beyond it reflecting faintly in the glass. 20 years ago, he had pulled the pin on history. Now it felt like something was rolling back toward him. Logan tapped the console embedded in the arm of his chair, the gesture as automatic as breath.
Prepare my ship.
Unlike most folks in Cryopolis, Logan didn't have to fight his way through the checkpoints or wait in line at the surface spaceport. His office had something better. Hidden under a section of the floor, a personal launch platform waited, silent and obedient. The shuttle wasn't large, just enough to punch through the dome's upper locks and get him clear of the atmosphere. No crowds, no delays, just Logan, his engineer, and an android pilot, the hum of the engines and the steady rise toward an interplanetary cruiser waiting in orbit, like the whole damn system had been built just to make sure he never had to talk to anyone unless he wanted to. Asteroid belt, dwarf planet Ceres. A cavern on dwarf planet Ceres. Ashcroft Corporation expedition. Dr. Lana Skye and a team of scientists and engineers stood deep beneath the icy regolith surface of dwarf planet Ceres, encased in a cavern where only artificial light could penetrate the abyss. Power cables coiled like veins along the ground, snaking toward the cluster of floodlights that cast stark white illumination over the chamber. The cavern's walls, an undisturbed tapestry of rock and crystallized salts, held little of interest to the gathered scientists. What mattered, what had drawn them all here, stood at the cavern's core. A structure. It was 50 meters across, a geometric enigma that defied simple classification. At a glance, it resembled a snub cube, though its edges softened into curves that suggested an almost spherical symmetry. The structure's surface gleamed faintly under the floodlights, its composition unmistakably metallic, yet no terrestrial database could identify the alloy. It wasn't just unfamiliar, it wasn't possible. As if it had been warped by gravitational forces intense enough to contort matter at the atomic level and leave space itself trembling in its wake. The alloy's mystery paled beside the far more disturbing discovery. It was the inclusions, grotesque, unmistakable, human bones. They weren't placed or attached, they were entombed in the metal itself, partially subsumed into the structure as though the alloy had flowed around them during some unspeakable forging process. Radiocarbon analysis came back staggeringly anomalous. One specimen remains dated to the Upper Paleolithic, 20,000 years before the present. Another specimen, just meters away in the same stretch of alloy, belonged to a woman who'd lived in the early 18th century. Lana stared at the data, then back at the structure. Whatever this thing was, it had been reaching through time to claim its victims. Lana's voice was low, almost drowned out by the hum of the floodlights. She didn't turn to face Greaves as she spoke, just kept her eyes on the alien alloy, its impossible facets flickering faintly beneath the artificial glow.
Funny, isn't it, Greaves? We spend decades, centuries really, looking for proof we're not alone, and now that something finally answers back, it does so in whispers, as if it could have been human, as if the thing might have been forged in some Paleolithic forge, while our ancestors were still chasing elk across glacial valleys with spears of knapped stone.
There was a long pause behind her then.
This isn't the first time I've stood in front of something like this.
Lana turned slowly, her expression unreadable.
You're saying you've seen others?
His gaze didn't waver.
Not quite like this, and never off-world.
Then it's not the same.
No, but it rhymes.
Lana's voice was steady, but there was an edge of disbelief beneath the surface.
I don't buy into those stories. Earth agencies stashing away alien starships and secret hangars. It sounds like myth.
Greaves exhaled slowly.
Not that I've seen one myself, but, well, a friend of a friend once hinted at things that don't show up in official reports.
He let the words hang, heavy and unspoken. Lana had spent a month studying the inscriptions etched into the surface of the structure. Though clearly alien, the symbols bore tantalizing hints of familiarity. Their syntax and curvature evoked the flowing script of ancient Assyrian tablets. Yet there were deviations, delicate warps in form and spacing that suggested an alternative linguistic evolution, or an entirely separate origin. The pattern recognition algorithms were still parsing through possible correlations, but Lana knew that meaning could not always be distilled through computation alone. Her colleagues, chemists, plasma engineers, material scientists were less concerned with interpretation. To them, the structure was an engineering challenge, an obstacle to be penetrated and examined. Ashcroft Corporation had claimed the site the moment the anomaly was detected, and their objective was clear: determine what was inside and whether it held value. The methodical study of its exterior, the quiet unraveling of its meaning, was secondary.
They're still trying to drill through the lower facet,
muttered Greaves, one of the field techs.
The composite cutter barely scratched it, like trying to carve obsidian with a spoon.
I don't think we are meant to open it.
Lana replied quietly.
Maybe we're meant to read it first? Some texts weren't written to be understood, only to serve as warnings carved across time like scars.
Lana turned back to the structure, eyes narrowing.
Microscopic analysis?
That's the part I like.
Greaves replied.
At 2 nanometers, the alloy's inner structure resembles a logic architecture, better than anything we've ever fabricated. Layered gates, interlocks, signal channels. It's like we're looking at a material that was designed to process information.
Lana's brow furrowed.
You think it's a computational device?
Greaves' voice dropped, almost a whisper.
Maybe it was, a few thousand years ago.
Time's late. I think that's enough of this mystery for me today. I'll catch the next shuttle up to the Ceres orbital. Maybe remember what stars are supposed to look like when they aren't being outshone by questions.
Lana did not believe in ghosts, curses, or alien omens, but in the way a scientist recognizes an equation that refuses to balance, a sequence of data that contradicts its own logic. The structure had been here for an unknown length of time, buried beneath the surface of Ceres, and yet it bore language. It bore purpose. If it had been placed here, then someone or something had placed it. The thought was somewhat terrifying, and at the same time, fascinated. Earth Coalition destroyer Hermes on approach to dwarf planet Ceres, a destroyer-class vessel, Hermes, bristling with weaponry and built for function over form, cut through the black towards Ceres. The dwarf planet had evolved from a barren rock into something resembling civilization, a patchwork of orbital stations, surface research outposts, and a small colony clinging to the planetoid's dusty skin like a stubborn weed. The ship's approach was methodical, nothing flashy, just another run to the belt, another stop at the crossroads of the inner system and the wild frontier of the outer planets. The Ceres orbital resort, a 4 kilometers diameter ring station with a spindle in the middle, nestled in the orbit of dwarf planet Ceres. John and Will stood by the airlock, both wearing Earth Coalition uniforms. Dark navy blue with clean-cut lines and silver insignias stamped just above the heart. The kind of outfit designed to look sharp under both fire and politics. John, older by 15 years and looking every hour of it, leaned against the bulkhead with the casual confidence of someone who'd seen too many failed missions to take anything too seriously. Early 40s, neatly trimmed beard, hair going a little salt at the edges. The docking clamps locked in with a metallic thud. He tapped his terminal and spoke, his voice steady.
Authorized command transfer to First Officer William Coniston.
The destroyer's computer responded.
Command protocol update. Authority of vessel Hermes has been transferred to First Officer William Coniston.
And just like that, his ship was under command of Will. John exhaled deeply, stepping out into the gravity of the station.
Damn, I missed gravity. Finally, I can walk without magnetic boots for some time.
He stretched, savoring the sensation, like someone who survived a combat training session led by a Martian drill sergeant. Will, his first officer, smirked, leaning against the airlock.
Don't get too used to it, Captain. We're sailors of the stars, after all.
John shot him a sideways glance.
Will, when you make your grand pilgrimage back to Mars between the bureaucrats and the dust storms, you ensure the coffee supply is resurrected. Some of us still believe in divine stimulants.
The captain said, his voice half buried under fatigue and irony. Will didn't look up from his tablet.
Captain, I am pretty sure you're single-handedly keeping the caffeine industry in orbit. Maybe you let the machine rest before it starts grinding its own bolts.
Will, since I'm entrusting you with the Hermes for 2 weeks, try not to scratch the hole. I'll be back. And I'd hate to find out my ship has been used for target practice.
Will grinned.
I'll keep her pristine, Captain. And hey, say hi to Lana for me.
John rolled his eyes, heading for the docking ring, with his bag slung over his shoulder. As soon as he stepped into the polished corridors of the Ceres spaceport, the familiar face he was looking for appeared, Dr. Lana Skye. She was leaning casually against a wall, her long brown hair cascading down her back. Dressed in a white leather outfit, that managed to look both practical and stylish.
Probably how a scientist with a side gig as an adventurer should look.
Clearly, it's not just the architecture that warrants attention.
Lana smirked, but her eyes softened for just a second.
Smooth, Captain. Hope your legs aren't as rusty as your pickup lines.
John raised an eyebrow.
Was that concern I heard?
Lana gave a small laugh.
Maybe. Or maybe I've just gotten used to having you around.
Admit it. You missed me.
He said, a little closer now. Lana looked away for a beat, then back at him.
I didn't say I didn't.
Only one way to find out.
John quipped, slinging his arm around her.
Let's see if this place has a decent bar. I'm on vacation after all.
Lana leaned against the railing, her eyes scanning the artificial horizon.
You know, they don't just have a bar here. This station's different from all the others around Ceres.
She said, a touch of pride in her voice.
They've got huge green spaces, a beach, even the food's top tier.
John raised an eyebrow.
A beach? I might have forgotten my sun cream.
No worries. The sunlight on Ceres is about 87% dimmer than on Earth. And here's the kicker. You can use hover bikes to transfer from one side of the station to the other.
Hover bikes?
John repeated, his tone a mix of disbelief and concern.
On a station? That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. I heard a rumor from the other stations.
He said, voice lowering.
That they occasionally spot mercenary ships from Jupiter colonies lurking nearby.
Lana shrugged, her expression unbothered.
Never met anyone from Nova Concordia in here. Maybe they like the view too much to cause trouble.
John gave a dry chuckle, his fingers tapping idly on the railing.
Or maybe they're just waiting for the right time to ruin the scenery.
Lana smiled, unfazed. Asteroid belt, outskirts of dwarf planet Ceres. Nova Concordia mercenary cruiser, Lone Star. The Lone Star moved like a shadow through the fractured silence of the asteroid belt, her matte hull curved for scatter diffusion and thermal masking, built in the high bays of Callisto yards where precision came with plausible deniability. Cruiser class, 300 meters of mobile firepower tuned for independent operations. She flew with a crew of 27, all former military or Black Ops adjacent. They didn't wear uniforms, but they ran tighter than most navies. Their target? A standard Earth Coalition patrol boat. A mid-sized cutter with decent eyes and bite, if it had seen them. It hadn't. In the forward cargo hold, 7 boarding specialists sat on magnetically locked benches, armor dull from experience, weapon systems already syncing to the boarding profile. Checked, ready. Opposite them, the ship's engineer monitored the cryopod systems, ensuring fallback and containment protocols were green. No one was improvising. Up on the bridge, Captain Thane stood with arms folded behind his back, eyes on a tactical overlay of the patrol boat. Hologram feeds laced into every helmet and visor on board.
There she is. Cold sensors, no threat posture. This should be surgical.
He highlighted the patrol boat's drive cone and weapon systems.
Phase 1 of the contract. Hit this mark clean, and the rest moves. Logan pays out on precision, not chaos.
Range, 10,000 kilometers. We're in her blind zone.
Spool dampeners to max. Full power, no shakes. Comm blackout starts now. Keep it broad spectrum and layered.
Wideband jamming active. They've gone dark.
Minimal force. Hit their drives. Low yield ordnance only. Confirm containment before damage.
8,000 kilometers. Missiles away. Tracking true. ETA 3 seconds.
A low vibration passed through Lone Star's deck. The detonation came nuck with quiet efficiency, just a blink on sensors.
Confirmed hits. Engine integrity degraded. Minimal scatter. No return fire.
Railguns next. 5,000 kilometers and close it up. Same target. Drives only. Keep hull pressure stable.
Understood, Captain. Charging coils.
The ship's spinal capacitors engaged with a thrum. Rail coils chirped as they cycled and fired. Single shots, measured impacts. No waste.
Direct hits. Engines are down. No orientation correction. They're drifting.
Approach vector, minimal profile. Hold formation at 500 meters.
Begin operations.
He keyed the internal comm.
Boarding crew, lock and load. Airlock cycles in 5. This is containment, not chaos. No unsecured artifacts. No unauthorized actions.
What we need are their transponder signatures, deep-range transmission patterns, and the docking telemetry pulled from station archives. Every bit of data they use to identify themselves is friendly. And after that, this cutter vanishes.
A long pause followed. When he spoke again, the voice had cooled several degrees.
Once we're inside and intel secured, neutralize the crew. No survivors.
He didn't say it again. He didn't need to.